joining us now. He's a former U.S. Department of Justice official and attaché at the embassy back in Colombia. And we just had you on the broadcast. I was saying back when you were there, you never could have thunk something like this could happen. And when, that was when things looked rosy. And you said you just saw the Colombian president not too long ago. He seemed very confident, didn't he?
I did, Mike. I saw President Santos in New York City a week and a half ago and listened to him very closely and asked him directly how confident he was. And he said that the polling and his belief was that he was about 70% likely to get the yes vote passed. And he was very confident and very enthusiastic and very hopeful for the future.
So when you're confident like that, you don't really have a plan B, do you? I mean, it seems like everybody's kind of scrambling, right?
Well, both Timochenko, Rodrigo Londoño, the head of the FARC, and President Santos said previous to the actual referendum this past week, just a couple of days ago, I should say, that there was no plan B, that if the Colombian people voted to not stop this war and to enter into long-term peace, that there was no going back. And I'm heartened to see that both sides have committed to a bilateral ceasefire, giving both sides time to sort of work this out.
And I've heard some analysts say, and I imagine you probably agree, that this really wasn't a vote against peace. It was just a vote against this deal. Where did they go wrong in forging this agreement? I mean, because obviously you have to think about the voting public and what they want. What did they do wrong there?
President Uribe, former President Uribe, current Senator Uribe, very artfully and skillfully essentially converted this plebiscite for peace to a referendum on President Santos. President Santos' favorability ratings are about 25 to 30% right now. Former President Uribe also very much linked the sense of impunity towards the FARC individuals, both high-ranking and rank-and-file members, and that they would essentially not serve any time, significant time in jail for having committed gross crimes.
If you and I sit down at a negotiating table and we hammer out a deal, and then you come back and say, well, this deal doesn't work, now I'm going to impose all these things on you, that's how a deal sort of crumbles, doesn't it? I mean, how delicately do they have to do this dance in order to keep this thing alive? It's
extremely delicate. I know that the government of Colombia is quite hopeful that Timochenko and the FARC upper command can maintain discipline and control over their rank and file. They clearly were able to do that at the 10th conference just last week, were they able to get unanimous support from the rank and file within the FARC to support this peace deal. They're very nervous in Colombia that some of the more rogue elements of the FARC, the 7,000 to 8,000 armed FARC soldiers, will actually commit a crime against the government, that is an ambush against a government convoy of national police or soldiers, and that will put this extraordinarily delicate process into real dire straits.
So how much time do they have? I mean, because what you're talking about, it can fall apart rather quickly. How long do they have to actually come to some sort of agreement here?
There's no exact time limit. I know that President Santos sent his envoys back to Havana to meet with Timochenko and others within the FARC High Command to continue to work out some solution. Again, Timochenko said that they would like to have a stable, lasting peace, and they would like to use words and not weapons. And President Santos is obviously very committed to this. Again, former President Uribe, as powerful and charismatic as he is, will play a significant role in this process going forward if there's any hope whatsoever for a lasting and just peace in Colombia.
Just about a week or so ago, I was talking to somebody and they said, you know, I think Santos could win the Nobel Peace Prize for this. And a lot of people were starting to say that sort of thing. And now, how much of a black eye is this for him?
Well, it's deeply embarrassing for him. I had heard the same rumors. I think he had heard them as well. He and others worked very hard over 4 years in Havana to get this peace deal to where it was. I think he is crushed. I think he deserves a great deal of credit for having the moral courage to push forward with this. I think his chances of obtaining the Nobel Peace Prize are not nearly as strong, obviously, but he was able to work with the FARC and Timochenko, its leader, to establish a bilateral ceasefire. So the end of armed hostilities will continue, and hopefully for a long time, and for many, that merits a Nobel Prize.
So, Peter, are you leaving this interview hopeful? You think, what are your, because you know Colombia, you've been there. What's your sense of what happens in the future?
And Mike, I guess sadly, I'm never shocked anymore, but frankly, I was taken very much by surprise. I did not trust the polling that showed that the C vote, that is to enter this peace agreement, was at 70%. I always suspected, and others did as well, that it would be much closer. Part of the problem was that 62% of the Colombian voting population didn't vote at all, either C or no. I think that's really indicative of a very torn community. There's still a lot of pain. I'm still optimistic. I think this bilateral ceasefire is extraordinarily important, this ceasing of armed hostilities. And both the FARC Secretariat and the government of Colombia are saying all of the right things. Whether or not they can hold it together for a significant amount of time to get something else negotiated is the real challenge. I don't think they're going to have 4 years to get that done again.
No, I'm going to agree with you there. Thanks so much, Peter. Really appreciate you coming in.
Thank you, Mike.